Okay, so on this, I'll bring this question down here for us. So x times x minus 3 equals 4. So how do we solve? So what we're going to do to solve this kind of thing, the first thing we need to do is to distribute through these parentheses, and we're going to get x squared minus 3x equals 4. So if you multiply through those parentheses, right away you say, oh, we've got an x squared equation. So then I'll put over here, solving an x squared or x cubed with an equal sign. That's what we're looking at. We've got an x squared in this case. So how do you solve x squared or x cubed with an equal sign? Step number 1 is you've got to get a 0 on one side. Going to get a 0 on one side. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, like so. Right, I'm trying to get a 0. So that'll go like that, and that'll just be 0. And the other side will be x squared minus 3x minus 4. How we doing? We seeing that? So we got a 0 on one side. And how we did it is by subtracting 4 from both sides. So first step is I just multiplied through the parentheses, got an x squared equation. As soon as I see x squared with an equal sign, I go, hey, step 1, get a 0. Step 2, let's keep going, factor. So I'm going to factor the other side. Now, how do you factor? Well, I bet you remember. So for 3 terms, remember it's multiply, add, multiply. Remember for 3 terms? Oh, the first thing is there anything in common? No. Did you notice there's nothing in common? They don't all have an x. This 4 doesn't have an x. There's no number that goes into all of them. The first one has no number at all. So no, there's nothing in common. I'm going to put the 2 parentheses. X is in the front. What multiplies to be 4? 4 times 1 or 1 times 4. Now, the order on this one doesn't matter because they both just have an x in the front. There's no difference. Okay, now how can they add to be minus? Remember how the signs were? Let me help with that. The sign in the middle, right there, goes on the bigger. Remember? Oops, can't spell sign. Sign in the middle to the bigger number, like that. So the sign in the middle goes on the bigger number. 4 is bigger than 1. So the sign in the middle always goes to the bigger. Why? Well, it's because minus 4 plus 1 adds to be minus 3, doesn't it? If you lose $4 and you gain back 1, you lost $3, right? And they multiply, negative times positive, multiply to be negative 4. It's right, isn't it? That's the right factorization. Sign in the middle to the bigger number. Okay, so we factored it. So what now? Well, now that it's factored, now we come down to step number 3. And we said each part gets its own 0. No, so in other words, we're going to say x minus 4 all by itself gets its own 0, or x plus 1 all by itself gets its own 0. Now, why? Why do we go from the whole expression equals 0 to each part separately equals 0? How's that right? Well, because parentheses mean multiply, right? If 2 things are multiplying to equal 0, that means either one could be 0 to make that true, right? You with me logically? This whole first parenthesis could be 0 because 0 times anything would be 0, right? If I said, hey, I'm thinking of 2 numbers, a first number multiplied by a second. What if I told you? What if I played a guess my number game? And I said, hey, I'm multiplying 2 numbers and it's equaling 0. How can that be? Well, the first number is 0 because 0 times anything would be 0. Or the second number is 0 because anything times 0 would be 0, right? So it means the first parenthesis is 0 or the second parenthesis is 0 because these are 2 things multiplying to equal 0. Okay, and then we just go on from there to solve. So solve for x, add 4 to both sides, boom. So x is 4, and here subtract 1 from both sides. So x is -1. So the two answers are 4 and -1. So we come back up here and we click the box, and we go click 4, and you put a comma between them. Either order, you can put the -1 first and the 4. It doesn't matter. Hey, are they really right? Let's check it. Let's prove it. If I plug, now remember, x can only be one thing at a time. Don't be confused. Don't think, oh no, so it's 4 here, -1. No. X is either 4 everywhere or it's -1 everywhere. So if x is 4, does that make the equation true? Let's just prove it's right. Yeah, this is 4 times, and 4 minus 3 is 1. 4 times 1, yeah, that equals 4. See how the 4 really works? It becomes 4 times 4 minus 3, and 4 minus 3 is 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 really is a solution to the equation, meaning if x is 4, it makes the equation true, makes the left side equal to the right side, brings true. How about -1? If x is -1, does that work? -1, and then what is the inside? -1 minus 3 is -4. -1 times -4, +4. Beautiful. How'd the math do that? It was just logic in motion. That's all math is. By taking logical steps, we found the two numbers that can make this equation true. X can be 4 in both cases, or x can be -1 in both cases, and it will make, either one of them will make the equation true. So those are the two answers to this equation. How do we do it? What do you do? I just distributed first off, got my x squared, and then you get a 0. Whenever you have x squared with an equal sign, you get a 0 on one side. So I subtracted 4, both sides to get a 0. And then I factor the left side with the 2 parentheses and multiply, add, multiply. And remember, the sign in the middle goes to the bigger. And then set each part to 0, because if two things are multiplying to equal 0, the first one could be 0 or the second one could be 0. That's just logical. That's what I mean by logic in motion. If two things are multiplying to equal 0, it's only logical that the first one could be 0 or the second one could be 0. And then we solve for x, add 4 to both sides, subtract 1 from both sides, and we were able to find the two answers that make this equation true, 4 or -1. There we go.